Hello, everyone from the NFL Combine in Indianapolis, Indiana. I am Dominique Yates. I'm joined by longtime Packers columnist Pete Dougherty. Pete, on this Tuesday, we had the chance to talk to Packers GM Brian Gutekunst, and it's kind of funny how life in the NFL goes. Just a couple of weeks ago, we talked to him. It was a ringing endorsement for Rich Bisaccia. Since then, Bisaccia has decided to step down as special teams coach of the Packers. What were your takeaways from what Gutekunst said about the decision and just kind of your impressions on it?
Yeah, he basically confirmed that they definitely wanted Rich Bisaccia back, and said that he surprised them a little bit by not coming back. From what I had heard, Bisaccia had done the same thing last year for sure, and maybe even a little bit the year before, where he was thinking about retiring. They asked him not to, and push comes to shove, he came back. I think they thought that was going to happen again this year. So he surprised him when he followed through with the stepping down from his current position. So now that leaves them, scrambling for a special teams coordinator. Although he painted a story where they're not scrambling because all those candidates have been taken. So now there's nobody else. All the 31 other teams have a special teams coordinator, so they don't have to hurry through this. So he had the glass half full view, where now they can take their time and sort through the candidates. And he said sometimes you hire guys in a hurry because there's just a free for all trying to get people, which is what the Packers did when they hired Gannon as their defensive coordinator. So we'll see how this turns out, but it could be a couple weeks before Matt LaFleur hires somebody, although you would think he's getting some interviews done here, because I think he's here for a coaches meeting.
Right. And so another thing that kind of stood out from talking with Gutekunst, talked about some of those guys that are coming up on those free agent deals, those contract years. There's a lot of guys out there that come to mind, like Lucas Van Ness or maybe a Rashawn Gary. Will he be back with the Packers? What were some of the takeaways on like those guys in particular, and if there were any more that really stood out?
Yeah, with Lucas Van Ness, so he's going into his fourth season, so they have to make this. By May, they have to decide whether to exercise his option for 2027, not for 26, but for 27. And I think the estimate is that number is going to come in at around $14 million. Gutekunst at least hinted that they're going to exercise it. He didn't say they were going to, but when he was asked about it, and he said, you got to make this big decision about a guy who has 8 or 8.5 sacks in his career, and he said, we don't make those decisions based on what they've done. We make them based on what we think they're going to do. So that at least seemed to suggest that they're leaning towards exercising that. I guess we'll find out for sure in May. He, in words, left open at least the possibility of Gary and Jenkins returning, but that just seems like, with their cap situation and the money, the $30 million on the cap they can save by cutting both of those guys, I just don't see any way that's happening. I think the moral of that is they don't want to tell other teams what they're going to do, even though they're going to have to make these decisions the next couple of weeks. They don't want to give anybody a heads up if they don't have to. It's always lying season in the NFL, but this is the lying season in February and March and April. So I think we have to, we can dismiss a lot of what he and other GMs and coaches are saying here.
It is funny you say that, because even at the podium, someone asked him about Romeo Doubs, and the reporter was like, now that Romeo Doubs is gone, he said, well, no one's gone yet. And, he was playing the game and said he would love to have Doubs back, and he'll wait and see what happens. But as far as just moving forward, you got the draft. Obviously, the Packers are in a different situation, not having a first-round draft pick. As far as with free agency and the draft, what are some of those positions in your head that you think that the Packers need to really target and explore?
Same as everybody else, right? Corner, defensive tackle, probably offensive line. Another thing, he keeps making it sound like Banks is going to definitely be back. Now, he said the same thing about Aaron Jones, a couple of years ago, and they ended up cutting him. But if I had to make a gut call, my gut is that they will bring Banks back for a second season. But we all know what those needs are, and I'm just, we're all curious. I'm curious to see whether he tries to do some of it and how much of it he tries to do in free agency. He always says, and it's true, you can't force things. And some years in free agency classes, it's just not there for what you might need. It's just not there. And it seems to me that the free agency classes have generally gotten worse the last few years. I think teams are getting smarter about signing guys, and we'll also have to see who gets cut in the next couple of weeks too. But I will be really shocked if they don't sign a corner or a defensive tackle, at least one of those two. And I'm thinking they're going to sign a guy at both, maybe offensive line, depending on what they do with Sean Ryan. All these are all moving pieces, and a lot is happening, and a lot of that is starting while they're here, talking to agents, not tampering, of course, but a lot of those decisions are being made as we speak.
Yeah, I guess the last point, and Gutekunst, I'm pretty sure you asked him the question about, they've been so much about the Packers having youth. Now they are a more seasoned team. They played a lot of football, about maybe the risk or reward of maybe getting like a 30-year-old guy that might have 1 year on his contract or go younger. What did you kind of make of the comments? Because when you look at this Packers team, sometimes it does feel like maybe they need like a veteran leader that can just kind of help them, maybe even like a defensive tackle.
Yeah, like if we just printed out what he said and we read through it, he basically would have covered every option, really when you get down to it. We can't judge them by what they say. We'll have to just judge them by what they do in the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I think free agency starts in mid-March, like somewhere around the 12th, somewhere in there. And those first few days, from now through those first few days of free agency, that's when it's all happening, and so we judge them by what they do and not what they say.
Sounds good. So all the takeaways from Brian Gutekunst at the Combine, and obviously tracking free agency and all that's coming up in March. You can find that on Packers News or Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. So covering the Combine here in Indianapolis for Pete Dougherty, I'm Dominique Yates.